Okay, so the last thing we need to do, we've already talked about how to find solutions by graphing. You find where it crosses the x-intercept. We've done quadratic formula, which does the same things. It finds your x-intercepts. We've done factoring, which does the same thing. Find your x-intercepts. This is one more method. So I've given you 4 tools to solve quadratics after today. This last way we've got to do is called completing the square. As you notice, at the top of this page, you have all the steps laid out for you. They're right there. So we're going to go through all these problems step by step the way this tells us. So let's do the one on the left-hand side first. X squared plus 10x minus 24 equals 0. So step 1 says, subtract c from both sides. This should technically say subtract or add, okay? It depends on what you need to do to move it to the other side. So first off, if I have x squared plus 10x minus 24, what is my c value?
Negative 24.
Negative 24, okay? If I need to move that to the other side, it becomes what? Positive 24. So step 1, we should have x squared plus 10x equals positive 24. Yes.
Boy, it's hot, boy. That car's got more.
I don't know. I'm comfortable. Just blowing out the air. I mean, it's somewhat cold.
I'm freezing.
Listen, nothing was as cold as sitting at that game last night.
Oh, God.
I had practice out in the cold yesterday.
Going back and going back.
And by the time that sun went down, we were just sitting there. Okay. Step number 2 says, make sure A equals 1. If not, you must divide everything by A. What is my A value right now? 1. So step 2, we have nothing else to do. So we're still at x squared plus 10x equals 24. Whoops, I forgot my x. Okay. Step 3 says, find half of b. Well, what's my b value right now? 10. What's half of that? 5. So step 3, we take 10 and divide it by 2, and we get a value of 5. Step number 4 then says square that half of b. So we need to square 5. What does that give me? 25. Remember, 5 squared is like taking 5 times 5, which means we have 25. Okay. Step 5 says add that to both sides of your equation. So what you're going to do is we're going to add 25 to this side. There's nothing to combine it with. So it becomes x squared plus 10x plus 25. And then we're going to add 25 to the right-hand side. So we have 24 plus 25. I personally never, ever use completing the square.
Why not?
Because there's too many steps.
Right.
There is a lot of steps to this.
Yeah, I see.
Okay.
It hurts. You gonna cheat just the easy way?
This is the 4th way I've taught you how to do everything. The first way was when we graphed it and you found where it touched the x-axis. The second way was doing the quadratic formula, which did the same thing.
Is that what this is?
And the other way was factoring. It did the same thing. This does the same thing that the quadratic formula will do. I'll show you that in a minute, okay? So we get x squared plus 10x plus 25 equals 24 plus 25. What's 24 plus 25? 49. So this side is technically 49 then, okay? Okay. Step 6 says factor the left side of the equation. Okay. So I need 2 numbers that are going to multiply to give me 25 that add together to give me 10. So what are my factors of 25?
5 times 5.
5 times 5
1 times 25.
and 1 times 25. Which one of those add to give me 10?
5 times.
5 times 5. So what this becomes is x and the 5. Okay. Because this middle term is a plus, it's plus 5. And it becomes squared. Okay. Because my factors technically are x plus 5 times x plus 5. So another way to write that is x plus 5 squared. Okay. That equals 49. Okay, don't lose your right-hand side. We now need to take the square root of both sides. So watch what happens. You're going to square root this side, and the square root and your square cancel, and all you're left with is x plus 5. Where are you confused, Christian? You cannot just tell me I'm confused.
Where did you get the never mind.
I cannot answer questions if you do not ask them. What is wrong? Why does the 2 go away? Because square root is opposite of squaring. So something like, remember, if you have like positive 7, and if I subtract 7, it evens out and gives you 0. That's kind of what happens here. When you have anything squared, to get rid of this square, you take the square root. It's like your opposite. Okay, same thing if you have 7x and you want to get rid of the 7, we do the opposite, which is divide. It's kind of the same exact thing. Okay. Christian, what is your question? Gentlemen, remove the earbuds or I'm going to start taking things.
Why did you take them out or I don't understand step 6.
Keep saying why.
What, the factor the left side of the equation?
Yeah.
Hello, Christian. Why?
Our job using completing the square is to find your answers for x. So in order to get x by itself, you have to factor the left-hand side. These are just steps to completing the square. Any other questions? We're going to do this all day today and all day tomorrow. And I will tell you this, there are 2 completing the square questions that are on your release test. So I guarantee you're going to have to know this for your final. Okay. Give it a little bit. We've got, I think, 10 examples to do today. Maybe it'll start to sink in. Just give it a little bit, okay? We're only on the first one. Okay, now, when you square root the left side, you have to square root the right side to keep the equations even. So what is the square root of 49? 7. 7 times 7 is 49. Now, watch what I do. 49, when you take the square root, you either end up with positive or negative 7. Okay, because if I square positive 7, I still get 49. If I square negative 7, I still get 49. That's where those 2 answers come from. The last piece is to solve for x. So now this breaks into 2 equations, just like your quadratic formula did, where you did the negative b plus the square root and you did negative b minus the square root. This happens the same way. So we've got x plus 5 equals positive 7 and x plus 5 equals negative 7. We now need to solve both of those for x. So to get x by itself, I need to move that positive 5 across the equal sign. So it becomes negative. So when I subtract 5, this first equation is x equals, what's 7 minus 5? 2. So that's one answer. The other side, we subtract 5. And x equals -12. Okay, so what you just found is your graph. When you graph it, it will cross your x-axis at +2 and -12. This did the same thing that this quadratic formula did. So watch.
What's up?
Okay, I want to see.
Good?
Yeah.
So let's take a look at the quadratic formula, what we learned at the beginning of the week. So quadratic formula is -b, plus or minus,
Plus or minus. Square
square roots,
B2 A.
divided by 2a. Okay, my b value is 10. So we plug in 10 for all of my b's. So -10 plus or minus the square root. We've got 10 squared minus 4. What's my a value? 1. What's my c value? -24. All divided by 2 times 1. So somebody plug this into your calculator for me. -10 plus, and somebody do -10 minus.
I got plus.
Okay? I don't care. Half you can do plus, half you can do minus. Don't forget, once you get this answer, you have to divide by 2.
What? Yeah, mine.
Okay? You have it?
But you can't divide everything.
You can't divide every what? You got what when you did this? You got what? -12 after you divided by 2. Okay, so when Sienna went through and subtracted, she got x equals -12. What did you get if you added? You got +2.
Yeah, positive.
What did we just get? So completing the square does the same thing that this does. It's just a different way to do it. Because I have to show you all of the ways. Because again, there's going to be problems on your test that says, show me step 3 of completing the square. So I need to show you all the ways. However, if you come across a question that says solve this quadratic, you can use any of the 4 ways I taught you. Doesn't matter.
4.
Yes.
Yeah.
Graphing, factoring, completing the square, and quadratic formula. Got 4 ways to do it. 4 ways.
4 way.
Okay. Let's take a look at number 2
Yeah.
on the right.
Yeah.
Okay, so same steps. Step number 1 says subtract c from both sides. Okay, so my c value needs to go to the right-hand side. So it becomes what? +17. So step 1 says x squared plus 16x equals 17. Bless you. Step 2 says make sure a is 1. If not, divide by a. It's already 1. So we leave it alone. Okay. Step 3 says find half of b. What's my b value?
16.
16. And half of that is 8. Step 4 says square half of that. So what is 8 squared?
64.
64. And now we add that to both sides of the equation. So we get x squared plus 16x plus 64 equals 17 plus 64. What's 17 plus 64?
I'm finna try to do it in my head.
81.
81.
Oh my Jesus.
Oh my Jesus.
We do it in my head.
Okay. Step 6 says factor the left-hand side. Let me show you the quickest way to do this without even trying to factor it. Okay. So when we took half of b, we got 5 in this first one, correct? Look what went into our factors when we factored it. 5. So whatever you get when you take half of b, becomes your factor here. So here we got 8. So again, because this middle term's positive, this is going to be x plus 8. Okay, so x plus 8, don't forget to square it. This is called completing the square. Okay, again, when you factor that, it's x plus 8 times x plus 8, which we can write as x plus 8 squared. And you said that equals 81. Okay, my goal, again, is to get x by itself. So we have to start doing the opposites. Remember, if it's addition, we subtract. If it's multiplication, we divide. If it's squared, we take the square root. Okay, when you do that, your square and your square root cancel and you're left with x plus 8. What's the square root of 81? 9. So it's going to be plus or minus 9. And then your last step, split it into 2 and solve each equation. So x plus 8 equals positive 9. X plus 8 equals negative 9. So to remove my 8 in both of those equations, I need to do what? Subtract. Okay, so we subtract 8. So my left-hand side is 9 minus 8, which is 1.
1.
And negative 9 minus 8, negative 17. Good, Marlon. So your two answers are positive 1 and negative 17.
1758.
1758.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Nah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, them group trending.
Not in the middle of notes, sir. When we finish these last two problems, I'll let you run before we get into the next piece. Bless you. Or was that not a sneeze?
That was a
Okay. All right. Let's go down here. Okay. The only difference between down here and what we did up there is now my A value is not going to be 1. So that step that we skipped in the last ones, we're not going to be able to skip here. So step number 1 says move your C to the other side. So it becomes positive 11. So 4x squared plus 4x equals positive 11. Okay. Number 2 says make sure A is 1. If not, we need to divide everything by A. So I need to divide each piece by 4. So what's 4 divided by 4?
1.
1. So now I've got x squared plus 4 divided by 4 is?
1.
So I just have x equals. Does this divide evenly?
No.
No, so leave it alone. Leave it as 11 over 4. Okay. Step number 2 says find half of B. Well, what's my B value now? 1. And what's half of that? 1/2. Okay. Step 4, I need to square that now. So what's 1/2 squared? If you need to use your calculator to figure it out, that's fine. Does not matter. Change it to a fraction. Hit math. Choice number 1. 1 over 4. Okay. So now I need to add that to both sides of my equation. X squared plus x plus 1/4 equals 11/4 plus 1/4. Well, what's 11/4 plus 1/4? 12/4, which is? 3. Good. Okay, when you combine these two, it equals 3. Now I need to factor the left-hand side. Remember, when we factor, when I took half of B, I got 1/2. So this is x plus 1/2 squared. Okay, so this number goes here. And if you need to draw yourself arrows, that's fine. Equals, you told me 11/4 and 1/4 is 3. I now need to solve for x. So I need to remove my square. So I take the square root. So I get x plus 1/2 equals. Okay, is 3 a perfect square? Can you take the square root? No. So all I want you to do right now is we need a positive and a minus square root of 3. Okay, we've got 2 answers. So I've got 2 equations to solve for at the end again. X plus 1/2 equals positive square root of 3. And x plus 1/2 equals negative square root of 3. So you're going to have to use your calculators for this one. Okay. When I move my 1/2 to the other side, it becomes what? Negative. So to get your first answer, you're going to take square root of 3 minus 1/2. Somebody plug that in for me. Square root of 3 minus 1/2. Don't nobody say nothing. Marlon will get upset. It's going to be a decimal.
Yeah, I got it.
Always round to 2 decimal places. Marlon, what did you get?
2.5. Told you.
Does it go to 2 decimal places or just 1?
1.
If it just goes to 1, leave it alone. So you said 2.5?
Yes.
Okay. The other side. Negative square root of 3 minus 1/2. What do we get?
I got negative 3.5.
Negative 3.5.
Yeah.
So sometimes they're going to be pretty whole numbers. Sometimes they're going to be decimals. It's just all luck of the draw. Questions? Right. This last one we're going to do is going to get really ugly.
Yeah.
Because this is like all fractions. Okay.
We just get this.
No, we've got to do it. Okay. First step, move your C. Move your C value to the right. So
Move the crook back.
positive 4 goes to the right and becomes negative 4. And when you combine that with 3, you get what? Because be careful, you already have a positive 3 here and you're subtracting 4, so you get negative 1. Okay. The other equations, you had 0 on the other side, so your number didn't change. This time I have a 3 over there. So you've got to take that into consideration. Okay. Step number 2 says I need to make my A value 1. So I need to divide everything by 3.
All right.
Okay. So 3 divided by 3 gives me 1. 4/3, however, does not. It stays 4/3. Equals negative 1/3. If it does not go to a whole number, leave it as a fraction. Okay. Now, this is where you must be careful. Step number 3 says find half of B. So when you plug this into your calculator, you have to put B into parentheses. Your B value and divide it by 2. If you do not put it in parentheses, it could mess up. So always use it. 4 divided by 3 divided by 2. So what is half of my b value? Change it back to a fraction.
Bro, I'm scared. This number's scary.
You said what? 2 over 3? I thought it was supposed to be 8. I need you to change it to a fraction. So yeah, it's 2 over 3 then. Okay, so 2/3. Okay. Step number 4 says I need to square that value now. So 2/3, again, put it in parentheses and square it. What does that give me? 4 over 9. Okay. This value now gets added to both sides of the equation. So x squared plus 4/3 x plus 4/9 equals negative 1/3 plus 4/9. Okay, now I need to factor the left-hand side, which is why I gave you the shortcut. So you're going to go back to where you divided b by 2. So this is x plus 2/3 squared. And that's going to equal, you need to combine these two, negative 1/3 plus 4/9. What's negative 1/3 plus 4/9? Go ahead, put it in the calculator. I can't with you. Four over 9. There is no possible way you got 4 over 9.
Yeah, I got 1 over 9.
I asked you to take negative 1/3 and add 4 over 9. So you should get 1/9. Okay, good. You should get 1/9. Oops. 1/9. Okay. My final steps then. Take the square root of both sides. So x plus 2/3 equals, I'm going to leave that alone and leave it as the square root of 1/9. That way you do it all at the end and you don't have to worry about it. Okay.
This is a lot.
I can't help that.
Yeah, my head do hurt. I'm not even.
I gotta use the bathroom.
Okay, your last step then is to split this into 2 equations and solve. So 1 equals positive square root of 1/9, and the other side equals the negative square root of 1/9. When I move 2/3 to the other side, I get what? Negative 2/3. So go ahead and subtract 2/3 from both of those and get your answers. Okay, it's okay to leave these answers as a decimal. Okay, please do me a favor though. When you type in the square root of 1/9, hit equals before you subtract the negative 2/3. Okay, because you'll end up throwing extra stuff underneath the square root and you'll mess yourself up. So I got negative 0.33. And I got -1 for the other side.
Can I vote now?
Yes, Stefan.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm pretty sure most of the problems that are going to be on your final are going to be whole numbers and stuff, and you're not going to be dealing with nasty fractions like we just did.
Yeah.
However, if you can do this, you can do any of it.
We could do this.
It's not going to get any harder than this last problem you just did. Ever.
It's already painful.
All right. So, what you're going to do,
Yeah.
I want you to take your paper,
Yeah.
okay? At this halfway point, I want you to fold this piece under.
Well, this piece. Gotta fold it under.
Actually, no, maybe it'll work if we fold it over.
Yeah,
That's
fold
it.
it over. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll fit on the page. Never mind, fold it over the other way. It'll fit.
Which way?
Okay, I lied. Fold it this way. Leave your instructions off on the side and fold it that way.
Double fold it?
Okay.
Double fold it?
No, just fold it that way. Leave it just like this. Okay. Then you're going to take it and you're going to glue it in on page 66 sideways.
Yeah, I did the opposite. Ate it, then I faked it.
So glue it in on page 66 just like this.
Oh, no. That's bad. That's bad. It's on
66. What y'all doing with my tape? You're not gonna sit here and play pass around my tape to put your stuff in your notebooks. Buy yourself glue. They don't want to tape for everybody. Tape in their stuff. I know what you're using.
What?
Yay. Okay, one more foldable, and then I'm gonna put you in groups and let you start the activity that you're going to finish tomorrow. Okay, you're not gonna be able to finish it today. So, the last foldable are the 2 pages that you have. Remember when we made the little lovely books that we stapled at the top? That's what we're doing again. So, find your page that has problem number 4 and 5 on it and face it directly to you the way you see it on the board. Where's Stefan? Because I better fold this or else. Actually, I'm just gonna fold his since mine's already done. It just needs stapled. Okay, so face it just like this with 4 and 5 in front of your face. Okay, everybody good? Okay, you're now going to take this piece and fold it down so the title of completing the square is right above where it says solve quadratics. Okay, that's that piece.
You said like this, right?
Yes, just so it looks just like what I have on the board.
Okay.
Okay,
Just like that.
just like that.
Yeah, like that. Like that. Like
Okay.
that.
You're now gonna take your other piece.
And fold it.
No, not yet.
Oh.
Take it, and I want you to face it like this. Where 7 is facing the front, and solve quadratics in standard form. You're then going to take the piece that you've already folded, and you're going to place it right above that title. So you've got all 3 titles in a row. And then you're going to take the top piece and fold it down.
Fold it down, fold it down.
So now you've got a flip book. Okay. Now, one of you can grab the stapler from over there. You're going to take your stapler and you're going to put 2 staples in the top. One on the left and one on the right. Okay. I'm going to start this one over on this side.
I'm a born sinner.
You're a what?
Born sinner.
Sinner.
Born sinner?
Yeah, we all.
I mean, we're all sinners.
I know, but especially like need to go get baptized.
Is it bad? Is it bad to go to church and not read the Bible?
I don't read the Bible when I go to church.
Okay, good. At least someone got it done. That's what I'm
I mean, I think a lot of people.
because I really don't read it. Because just to stay on one topic, we gotta go to 2 many different pages.
But when you get older, you're gonna start reading.
I'm 32. I don't read it.
That is not old. That's still young.
No, it should be going to
My
church.
grandma
since
don't
she was
read it and she's 82.
Oh, my bad.
My grandma and I are 50 years apart. She was born February 16th and I was February 25th.
Goes.
She's my favorite person in the world.
What about your mom?
I mean, she was my favorite person in the world.
Oh. Sorry.
Listen, it's okay. I'm not. It taught me a lot, though, about respecting people and because you never know when their last day is.
Yeah.
You know,
Make sure you always tell that person that you love them.
absolutely.
Nowadays,
Trying to get the same love vibe, man.
there you go.
They need to see.
My mom was 47 when she passed away.
47.
He was young.
She was very young.
Very.
That's why I said don't ever take any day for granted because you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
So my husband and I have decided, you know, every day, I don't care if he's sleeping or I'm sleeping, you wake him up, give him a kiss, tell him you love him before you walk out that door. Nothing's ever guaranteed.
Right. What is thankful?
My mom died from complications of a surgery. She was having chest pains and like pains like up here, and they thought she had free air in her abdomen. So they did emergency surgery and cut her open and was like checking out her intestines and stuff to make sure there wasn't like a hole and it wasn't leaking or anything. And they didn't find anything, but when they sewed her back up, they never put her on blood thinners. So a clot lodged itself in her lungs and sent her into a massive heart attack, and it killed her.
Wow. So it was the doctor.
Oh yeah, we sued.
Doctors are the reason.
Oh yeah, we had $1 million lawsuit against us.
There's a little to your crib. She's
Y'all
doing
window.
real.
And I took that money and paid off my student loans. Because let me tell you, college is not cheap.
I know. Trust me, I've been there and done that. I'm just finishing high school.
Please stop. Look at your crib. She's doing her ribs.
Listen though, I'll tell you like I tell everybody else, do not let financial aid stop you from going to college.
Bro, I'm going to college regardless. I'm just
I
saying.
know somebody with $200,000 worth of debt from student loans.
Bro,
Sheesh.
bro.
He gonna pay that Apple Life.
But they have a college education, they teach now, They're actually going back to get their administrative license to become a principal. Like, you can still do things.
That's Mr. Tate.
No.
Mr. Tate going back to school.
Is he?
become a principal.
I haven't talked to him
Oh, yeah.
lately.
The goat.
Okay.
He was like, yeah, so he could replace her.
Boy, Christian.
All right. So let's go ahead and go through this. If you do not have it stapled yet, just hold off. You will be fine. You can go back and staple it at the end. Just make sure you're on the problems that we're on. Okay. Completing the square. Our main thing with completing the square is squaring. Our job is to square half of B. Whoops, that should be an F of B. You square half of B. So what that looks like is we take half of your B and we square it. And that was steps 3 and 4 on that last sheet. You took half of B, found that answer, and then you squared it. This is that all shoved in one step. Okay, so we're going to practice the different components in this foldable. Okay, so we need to find a value of C such that the expression is a perfect square trinomial. So we're going to do steps 3 and 4. Okay, so to find this perfect C value that we need, we take your B value, we cut it in half, which gives me what? 18 divided by 2. Thank you. 9. And then we square it. What's 9 squared?
3.
9 squared, not the
Oh.
square root.
Bro, I answer no more questions.
81.
81.
No more questions.
Okay. So on that last page, when you found that value that you added to both sides, that's what we're doing here. We're just focusing on that part of the steps. So again, to get to the next piece, we've got 10 cut in half, which is what?
5.
And 5 squared is?
25.
Okay.
Okay, I got that right. Good.
Number 3, cut B in half. What's 7 squared? Or I'm sorry, 7 divided by 2, not 7 squared. Oh my goodness. What's 7 divided by 2? 3.5. What's 3.5 squared?
12.25.
12.25.
Is that foodie time?
Look, I even folded your thing and stapled it for you and everything.
Right, cooler.
You said this was what?
All right,
12.25. Fantastic.
25.
Okay. Flip the page.
What
Whoa, la 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 la.
In the way, I couldn't see.
Sorry. You said Marlon's head was in the way?
Yeah.
Tell him to not have such a big head.
Don't have such a big head.
Bro, all this gone, bro.
All right, you good.
Good.
How you vote?
Don't worry about that, Stefan. We are on something else right now. Okay.
Oh, my fault.
Now we're going to do all of the steps, just like we did on the last sheet. Okay. So step number 1 said put your C on the other side. Do I have a C value still on the left?
Yeah, no.
No. So step number 1 was already done for you. Okay. The next step said take your B value. So take 10, divide it in half. What does that give me?
5.
What's 5 squared?
25.
25. This is the value that you now add to the left and add to the right. So this becomes x squared plus 10x plus 25 equals negative 16 plus 25. Okay, this is now a perfect square trinomial. which means we need to write it as some quantity squared. My middle term is a plus, so it's going to be x plus. What value am I using to fill in that blank? What was it? 5. It's half of your b. So when I took half of 10, I got 5. So this is x plus 5 squared. And that equals. What do I get when I take negative 16 and I add 25 to it? 9.
Oh, okay. See, in
Okay. Now, we need to get x by itself. So I need to take the square root of both sides. So I get x plus 5 equals, what's the square root of 9? 3. And again, please don't forget your plus or minus to give you your two answers. So we have x plus 5 equals positive 3, and x plus 5 equals negative 3. To isolate x by itself, we need to move my 5, and my 5 becomes negative. So x equals negative 2 and negative 8. Is it at least getting a little bit easier, even though you hate the fact that there's 50,000 steps?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, no?
I mean, it's
No, the first time.
if we do some more problems.
Yeah, it's for satisfaction, but no, it's not satisfaction.
Okay. All right. We've got this one. And what, one more with me?
I know.
No, 2 more with me. Okay. We've got 3 more with me. And then I'm going to get you started on what I need you to work on for the rest of class and tomorrow. Okay. X squared minus 4x equals 1. Do I need to move my c?
Yes. No.
It's already on the right, so we're good. Okay. So now take half of your b value. What's half of 4?
2.
2. And what's 2 squared? 4. This is the value that I add to both the left and the right. So this becomes x squared minus 4x plus 4. And the right-hand side becomes 1
Is that equals
plus 4. What, that one that kind of looks like a Z because my marker dried?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an equals. Guys, stop talking and focus.
Okay.
Earth to Deja. The board's up here.
Y'all got me mixed up.
Stop talking, please. That's what the church wants.
Okay. I now need to factor that left-hand side. Again, x. My middle term is now a negative. So this is going to be minus. And I still use the half of my b value. So I'm still using a 2 squared equals, what's 1 plus 4? 5. Okay. Yes.
Wow.
And 2 plus 2 is 4.
Wow.
Okay. We take the square root of both sides. So we're left with x minus 2 equals. This doesn't come out to be a whole number, so I'm going to leave it as plus or minus the square root of 5. Okay. Save all of your decimals until the end. Because if you start with decimals now and you shorten them, you're going to change your answers. The most accurate answer is to leave your decimals until the end. Okay. So now I've got x minus 2 equals positive square root of 5, and x minus 2 equals negative square root of 5. My last step for both equations is to get x by itself. So my 2 has to become positive. So again, when you plug this into your calculator, do the square root of 5. equals, then add 2 to get your answer. Okay, so you got 4.24. If you guys are going to continue to talk while I'm teaching, you can finish this foldable on your own, and I have no problem with it, and I'll just grade it. Okay, then stop. Okay. The other side, you've got negative square root of 5. Again, please hit equals before you add your 2. And you get negative 0.24 on that side. Questions or problems?
No.
Okay, we've got 2 more to do.
Problem. I'm freezing cold in my head.
Okay.
That's bad.
These last 2, these put in that first step that we did on the last page. Okay, so now my C is on the left-hand side, so we're going to have to move that first before we do anything else. Okay, so when I move my C value, this looks like what? Good. It's going to be positive 17. Okay, everything else is going to remain the same. We now take half of my B value. So 16 divided by 2 gives me 8. And then you square it. What is 8 squared? 64. We now take 64 and add it to both sides. So x squared minus 16x plus 64 equals 17 plus 64.
81.
81.
Good. My right-hand side's going to be 81. This side I need to factor. So it's going to be x. What number are we using? 8. We use half of our b value. What sign goes in the middle? It's going to be a negative. Because your b term is a negative, this is a negative inside of here. Okay?
Oh, snap. We already did this one.
Yeah. Now we take the square root of both sides. So you get x minus 8 equals, it's the square root of 81. 9. So plus or minus 9. You've got 2 equations then. X minus 8 equals 9. And x minus 8 equals negative 9. To get x by itself, Stefan, we're going to do what? How do I get rid of that 8? Has to go across the equal sign. So what has to happen?
Move it. You gotta move it.
You've got to move it, but when it goes across the equal sign, what happens to it?
It goes away.
It does go away, but
It goes down.
if it's negative on this side and I move it across,
It's a positive.
it becomes a positive. So I need to add 8 to both sides. So I get x equals, what's 9 plus 8? 17. And x equals negative 9 plus 8. Not just 1. Negative 1. Fantastic.
Oh my god.
Oh my God. Guess what? We're on our last one.
Right.
What do you do?
What?
How many times?
Huh?
Once.
No, it shouldn't have. How do you figure? Okay. Negative 8 times negative 8 is a positive 64. Because you didn't put the negative into the parentheses. So it didn't square the negative, it only squared the 8. That's why I never take this negative down here, because this will always come out to be a positive number, because anytime you square anything, it comes out positive.
Drip ready? Drip.
You're not the only one that's done that. That's why I never, when I take my B value and cut it in half, I just never take the side with it. I just take it off. Okay? Last one. I need to move my C value. So my equation looks like x squared plus 6x equals positive 2. Fantastic. Take your b value, cut it in half. So that gives me 3, and then we square it before we add it to both sides, so we get 9. X squared plus 6x plus 9 on the left, and 2 plus 9 on the right. My right-hand side equals what? 11. 2 plus 9. Don't lose your 2, Stephon. Okay. On the other side, we get x. What sign am I using? A positive. And yes, we are using the 3, half of your b term. Okay. Take your square root of both sides. You get x plus 3 equals. The square root of 11 is not a perfect square, so I'm going to leave it alone until the end. Okay. So now we get x plus 3 equals positive square root of 11, and x plus 3 equals negative square root of 11. When I move my 3, I must subtract. Again, please do not forget to hit the square root of 11 equals before you subtract 3.
Moses been a detective. He's investigating
0.32.
larger than mine, no.
And negative 6.32. Questions or problems? Okay. This is going to glue in on page 67.
We already knew this.
Yeah. Maybe she wanted to reinforce.
Well, thanks anyway.
Well, error.
Stop sitting on my phone.
Bro, I got something way before you heard.
Yes, he do.
I'm just